Today's episode is going to be the most conspiracy theory filled, 超级夸张, 有可能 episode we have ever done.
Hold on to your butts.
So far, everything that I'm about to reveal to you, I haven't seen in any movie, TV show, or book. Real talk. This stuff is monkey throwing feces off the wall bananas. When you hear what this guy has to say, you will absolutely hope that it's true. Because if it is, that means that the entire world will finally have free energy, and most importantly, we will all get our own goddamn personal hovercrafts.
Finally!
And all of this comes straight from the mouth of Terrence Howard, the guy who Taiwanese might remember as Rhodey in the first Iron Man, and in America, who we absolutely remember as Lucius Lyons in Empire, and also as a whoop that trick guy in Hustle and Flow.
Whoop that trick, get him, whoop that trick, get him, whoop that trick, get him, whoop that trick.
And trust me, once you hear what he has to say, the first question on your mind will be, what kind of psychedelics is he on? The second question in your mind will be, where exactly can I get some? And the third, most important question that will come to your mind is this guy the real life Iron Man? Because by the time you watch to the end of this video, there will be so much evidence that you might just believe that this Oscar-nominated actor might be a real-life genius. So prepare 你的爆米花, 你的饮料, and also 你的poke, and get ready to dive deep into the mind of Terrence Howard. First things first, although I studied engineering in college, I pretty much slept through mathematics class and physics class and astronomy class and chemistry class. Not only that, but that was like 23 years ago. So I am totally not qualified to judge of what this guy is saying is correct or not. What I can do is guide you through the mind and words of this 3-hour podcast on Joe Rogan, where in the first 5 minutes, Terrence Howard says some absolutely wild shit. And given that my wife just gave birth to my son, it does make me wonder.
I didn't come into this world the way everybody else does, I don't think. My first memory, I was inside my mother's womb, and I was about maybe 6 months inside the womb. And I'm like, okay, don't forget I'm here. Okay. You go to sleep, wake up again. Now something's moving in front of you, and you're like, oh, that's my friend. But I had a different name for it. I didn't know it was my hand, but I knew I had a title for it. Go back to sleep. Then ultimately you get ready to come out. I remember all of that.
That's crazy, man.
So like I said before, this is like 5 minutes deep into the interview, yo. And it does make you wonder, did this fool hit his head while getting into the Warhammer suit? When you listen to his tone and his eyes, it is undeniable. The psychotropic fungi that he is eating is mighty powerful and mighty expensive.
And then when I was about 5 years old, I had another dream, and there was a being there. I knew his voice, but I did not know who it was, but I felt confident and comfortable. And as we moved along this dark blue fluid path, he said to me, if you could have anything in the world, what would it be? I said to him, I want to know how everything works. And at that moment, he used his left hand and he opened up the door. And it was this mansion. And inside of it was this big crystalline flowers, like a giant, like 5 feet across. He would reach in and hand me another shape. I woke up from that dream. But after that moment, anytime something strange would happen in a dream, I had the powers of inception. And I had access to all the knowledge.
Now, statements like this can be heard often. Even Nikola Tesla said something to a similar effect. But that guy actually created things, like the alternating current. But Terrence Howard, my man created movies and a couple of TV shows that are pretty good to watch a few times.
Whoop that trick, get him, whoop that trick.
So at this point, I am absolutely not convinced. But for every good movie, there's always a really good plot twist. And keep this in mind, because as we go deeper, there's definitely one coming that you won't see.
Ooh, plot twist.
So about 15 minutes in, I was pretty much like, okay, this guy tokes a little bit too much, he's a little bit narcissistic, exaggerates a bit, and it probably works really well to get some hippie titties in bed. Then my man started going in deep on chemistry.
My intention was to rebuild the periodic table.
And when you say rebuild the periodic table, what do you mean specifically?
Well, the way the periodic table is laid out, it looks like a box. You'll see hydrogen sitting all the way over there by itself, but they don't show that hydrogen has the same tone as carbon.
What do you mean by tone?
Same tone, same key of E. 40.5 hertz. The next one would be like 81 hertz. You go to silicon, it will double up and would be 162 hertz. You'll go to cobalt and it'll be 324 hertz. It's the same wavelength, it's just twice as long.
So I'm assuming that a lot of you watching are like me and only really paid attention to chemistry whenever watching all 5 seasons of Breaking Bad.
Yes, science.
Like, my man's just blowing smoke out his ass. He's just bragging, right? But then this fool took out his correction of the periodic table with the elements completely rearranged.
It's unwinding.
Whoa. So you had figured this out at a young age?
I had already seen this. This was all inside of that palace. I had access to it, and I knew the relationship.
So you saw this in dreams?
I saw it as a circle. Everything was a full circle laid out, and each area was just expanding, like wrapping a rag around your hand. You'll see there's a relationship between hydrogen, carbon, silicon, cobalt, rhodium. They're all bonded. They're all sit as the middle point between two noble gases.
So after seeing this, I was like, my man has smoked so much, he's serious. I mean, he's not really like those other narcissistic weirdos who keep going on about how great they are and about how many great ideas they have. This guy is actually taking action.
That's crazy, man.
So although I was still skeptical, my interest was piqued. Then this fool switched from chemistry to physics, and he started talking about how he had solved the problem of gravity, and he even goes so far and becomes so bold as to call out the god of physics, Albert Einstein. So there are very few guys who, after they die, their ideas are constantly being proved correct in present day. One such guy is Albert Einstein. Almost every year, modern scientists and physicists are constantly proving that Albert Einstein was not only way ahead of his time, but was very, very fucking right. And you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody who would dare to call Albert Einstein as being wrong. But Terrence Howard happens to be one such person.
You show me a real straight line in nature. If everything in the universe is expressed in motion, all motion expressed in waves, all waves were curved. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So the greater the action, the greater the reaction. The greater the reaction, the greater the resistance. The greater the resistance, the greater the curvature. Because the universe is based off of equanimity, which Einstein left out in his theory of relativity, the balancing side of the gravity was caused by electric force. Electricity is always seeking a higher pressure condition. It spins northeast, it's trying to get to the center of an area, the center of a cone. But the next electric wave is coming, so it gets pushed out, and as it's pushed out, it gets to the vortices. Now, instead of it spinning northeasternly, centripetally, it's forced to spin centrifugally, and it spins southwesternly.
So, pretty much everyone who's a hardcore fan of Einstein knows that Einstein's ultimate goal, along with several people in the current physics community, is to create the gut, aka the grand unified theory. But for those of you who aren't familiar with physics and have no idea what the grand unified theory is, basically his goal was to take the three major forces of nature and combine them into one, which is a little bit more difficult than it sounds. But according to Terrence Howard, he has already figured this out.
What happens when we get older? We get shorter at the top. Why? Because the electric force is pushing in and condensing, and the magnetism expands out at the equator. The electrons, that's just discharged electricity, devitalized electricity, coming from the sun, coming from the earth. It's the waste product from it, but it hits our magnetic field, and then it gets pulled right back in and gets compressed again, and now it becomes electricity for the earth, and then it pushes itself right back out again. Einstein left that out of his equation because he coupled electricity and magnetism together and didn't realize that electricity was the equal and opposite of magnetism.
So my man has called out Einstein as being wrong, he's figured out a way to solve the gut, and now he's about to blow your mind with the idea that black holes don't even exist. Which is weird because I thought I saw a picture of it in space somewhere.
What do you think a black hole is?
It doesn't exist. There aren't black holes. There's no spot where where energy goes in and never comes back out. There's no place in the universe where the information paradox occurs, where there isn't a balance. Something gets contracted and never comes out. That's not how the universe behaves. It comes in and it goes out. Everything, if it comes this way, it has to go this way. You breathe in, you breathe out. It's filling in or pouring out.
So what do you think they're detecting when they're detecting black holes?
With that shift that they're talking about, that's the tornado. Remember, there's a vortice. There's all these huge vortices. Everything is spinning around a vortice. The same thing that's happening at the center of the galaxy is happening in the center of a hurricane. It's happening in your toilet stool. All motion is expressed in waves. All waves are expressed in curves.
So as you can see, my man is on a Super Saiyan level of wild ideas, yo. But what he's about to do next will make you completely admire him, as this guy is about to recreate a very well-known planet.
And there's no gravity whatsoever in this model. There's no center attractor. So it's just vortexes and two magnetic fields, a north and a south polarity, and one harmonic resonance, which is emanating a vibration in the field. And then when I hit play, it does it all by itself using physics simulation. So there's no animations at all in this model.
Holy fuck.
And then when I look down at the top, it makes the actual hexagon that NASA has observed on the top of Saturn.
Is this saying that you guys can recreate planets?
Yes, this is a particle simulation of the physics involved in making up the planet Saturn.
Now, I have never used this software before, but I can pretty much guarantee if I got my hand on it, I'd just use it to make some planetary-sized boobies, because I'm a goddamn 13-year-old child trapped in a 40-year-old body. But my man Terrance is using it to do some absolutely wild things, yo, which I gotta give him props. Because say what you want about how wild his ideas are, but the fact that he's willing to go this far to prove it,
That's crazy, man.
you gotta give him a little bit of respect. But just when you think you've got a grasp on what Terrencehoward is talking about and think that he possibly might be sane, he starts going off on tangents and talking about things that even elementary school students know about. We're talking about basic mathematics. We're talking about the fact or non-fact that 1 times 1 does not equal 1. So as I mentioned before, I wasn't the greatest student in school and I definitely didn't pay too much attention to math class. But I could at least do some basic addition, subtraction, some division, and at least I know this, that 1 plus 1 equals 2, and 1 times 1 equals 1. But according to Terrencehoward, I'm dumb as fuck. Because that ain't true at all.
It's illogical where the square root of a number added to itself will equal more than that number squared. But that's what happens with the square root of 2. That's what happens with most of the numbers. I was like, how is it that multiplication, if it means to make more and increase a number, how is 1 times 1 equaling 1 part of the multiplication table? Now, I understand it if you're seeing it one time, but we call that once. But the moment that you add the times in there, that multiplicative indicator, that means there's more than 1. So now each equation is supposed to be balanced. You know, that equal sign is supposed to show that there's a balance between these 2 numbers over here and a balance on this one over here. What happened to the other one in this equation?
And it was this statement right here that made everyone completely lose their minds. So now I'm calling on those of you watching who have a deep understanding of mathematics. 因为他讲的蛮有说服力哟, at least to an idiot like me.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb.
Is what he's saying true? Does it 有道理吗? Let me know down below. But until then, I still believe that 1 times 1 is 1.
If we're 98.7% identical to simians, right?
Right.
And there's only 1.3% differentiation, where did that change occur? Where did we get this new understanding? And how did we lose 2 chromosomes, even though we're 98.7% identical and behave just like them? There's that 1.3% differentiation, whether you want to call it the Anunnaki or some other influence that acted upon us. And we were given, the Sumerians were given their number system. That's where the 1 times 1 equaling 1 came from.
Now, something as crazy and outlandish as this, most people I think might want to keep to themselves or maybe only share with a few close friends. But my man Terrance sought out one of the most respected and well-known physicists and scientists there are, Neil deGrasse Tyson. And Neil's response, he tore that fool a new asshole.
I reached out to Neil deGrasse Tyson and I told him it was controversial, and I sent him over the 36-page thing that had the wave conjugations in it, but I started it off with 1 times 1 equaling 2. And he went in on my treatise, redlined everything. When he wrote his response to my paper, and he said, if you have any other questions, you're going to have to see somebody else, and he wouldn't take my calls anymore. I was like, okay, so I wrote the book based off of those responses, and I reached out to another guy, Dr. David Tong.
That would be very, very interesting that would be his take as a public educator, that he wouldn't want to talk to you anymore.
He attacked it with such vitriol. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I need to walk away from this.
Okay, so most of what he said up until this point, I think got everyone else thinking that maybe the whoop that trick guy might be onto something. Once he shouted out that 1 times 1 equals 2, he pretty much lost everybody, yo. He was a subject of ridicule all over the internet and in real life. But to me, it seemed like Terrance was just taking a page out of Andrew Tate's book and saying some wild shit to get everyone's attention and get some clicks and views. Then he went on to talk about something else that made me think this fool might be onto something. When you hear and see what it is, you might start to believe that this guy really isn't crazy. Okay, so up until now, pretty much everything that Terrencehoward has said is some absolutely wild, badass shit. But everyone knows when it comes to science and physics, you need receipts, yo. You need evidence. Otherwise, you're just a 美国黑人老高, aka 好汽车, fun to listen to and 有时候很精彩. But when it comes to what they're actually saying, you're not entirely sure if it's true.
It's true.
But then my boy Terrance, aka Whoop That Trick Guy, went out and said this.
Like people say, well, what business do you have coming in here talking about science and all that? You're an actor. You want to know what my first patent was? The entire AR, VR world was built off of my first patent that was abandoned because I paid $260,000 for the worldwide patent. But then my lawyers kept sending me these maintenance fees and annuities, and I'm like, these folks are just trying to shake me down. I'm not going to pay this. Well, a year later, if you would pull up my World of Windows patent, I think it's one of the first patents up there, I want you to see where your AR/VR world came from. And you look at the list of companies that has cited, and didn't just cite it, they built their entire AR/VR world off of my World of Windows patent.
So when I heard him say this, I immediately went on the Google Patents website to fact check this shit. And it turns out that everything he's saying is true, yo. Pretty much every VR device that has come out since 2013 is a direct result of his patent. Check it. In addition to inventing a hydrogen-powered engine, TerrenceHoward has over 90 patents across different fields, including metallurgy, chemical engineering, and even flight technology. He has a fire detection system patent that was cited by Xiaomi. And when it comes to the VR and AR patents that he's used, over 61 tech companies in 5 different companies has cited his inventions, and 20 of those citations come from Facebook and Meta. Then when it comes to the system and the method that he created for merging virtual reality and reality to provide an enhanced sensory experience, 31 companies cited this shit. And in that list is Sony, Microsoft, Amazon, Hewlett-Packard, GoPro, and Raytheon.
That's crazy, man.
Now, the first inkling of doubt in your mind might be that, man, this fool saw Ready Player One too many times and went out and immediately registered the patent. Here's the thing. This fool's registered patents all come before Ready Player One and before AR and VR started to become mainstream. But it don't just stop there. My man has been on some other shit as well.
I want to show you linchpin now. I've invented a new form of flight, tangential flight, the ability to fly around your own center of mass, something they've never been able to do. And you don't hear anything about it. And it's unlimited bonding. If right now, fixed wing aircraft, you can go in 4 degrees of direction. They go up, down, some can go forwards and backward, backwards and right to left. But this is able to spin around its own center of mass. This is a sustained system. Their ability, because this is the geometry of hydrogen, any bond that hydrogen can make, linchpin can make, and what they're basically doing is building the periodic table.
What? You mean this thing can actually fly? So I took my ass straight to Google to confirm, and this dude actually created this shit, yo. It is legit.
And what's powering them?
We're going to use hydrogen fuel cells.
So hydrogen fuel cells,
or you can use lithium batteries.
And how are they moving? Like what are those? Are those like propellers?
Yeah, those are props. But
okay.
But that right there, what we have right there is collective pitch. Instead of all the props having to turn themselves around to stop and turn in the opposite direction, like they just switch and it changes. And so now instead of going up, you're going down. But now 5 of them will come together. So this is the end of cranes. They can be as small as a nanoparticle, or they can be as large as the universe.
So it turned out that TerrenceHoward actually hosted a linchpin competition a couple of years ago, and the first prize got $25,000. Now, I don't know about you, but when I saw this is the closest thing I've seen to a UFO or a UAP. But upon closer examination, you'll find out that the energy efficiency of this type of thing is actually very, very low. Not only that, but why does it have to have this shape? That question was soon answered with this shot. You see, the shape of this craft actually has a lot of advantages that other traditional drones do not have. It's sturdy, it rolls when it falls, and if it ever becomes an unmanned aircraft, the passengers will be extremely safe. You need to keep in mind that the prototypes created for the linchpin competition were all created on a very short time frame. So I have to say, it's pretty impressive what they can do for such a short period of time to be created. And apart from the energy efficiency issue, I gotta say, this stuff does look pretty cool, and they could also even be combined. So by this point, I'm thinking, yo, this guy could be the real life Iron Man. And that's pretty funny considering the irony of him being fired from Iron Man.
I was doing Iron Man.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, that gets taken away. We did a 3-picture deal with Marvel. $4.5 million for the first one, $7.5 to $8 million for the second one, $12 million for the third. We signed it. They come back to me the week that my mother dies, and they said, yeah, we want Terrance, but we want to come back for $1 million instead of the $8 million that we had agreed to. And my agent had an emotional reaction to a business decision, and he said, F you, and hung up the phone. Well, immediately they go to Don Cheeto. But instead of just doing that, they had to spin, he was terrible on set and all of these things, and went through all this stuff.
Now, I know many of you might be thinking that, hey, this guy went on a podcast, and Joe Rogan's podcast is known for a lot of conspiracy theorists and some weird kooky people. There was even one time when a guy went on his podcast and then later got convicted of murder. If you want to know more about that story, leave a comment down below. But you have to understand something. Before Terrance went on the Joe Rogan show, he also did a speech at Oxford. We're talking one of the top European universities in the world.
I want you guys to know about a 6,000-year-old secret. 6,000 years, mankind has been trying to decipher this one little thing called the flower of life. This symbol was found in the Temple of Osiris. and it had been molecularly burned into the wall. The same symbol has been found in the forbidden temples in China, sitting under the fufu dogs. And the foot on it, the flower of life, saying whoever controlled that flower of life controlled the universe. There were secrets in that flower of life that Da Vinci spent his whole life trying to uncover. There were secrets in that flower of life that Newton spent his whole life in secret trying to uncover. The same secrets that Pythagoras was desperately trying to uncover.
Now, take into account that this guy is an actor, he's very good at saying things with confidence and conviction. But I do have to give him props for willing to come out and be ridiculed for what he's saying. My man has got balls. I mean, this guy goes on a variety of different topics, from the flower of life, to aliens, to spacecraft, to life on Mars, to even the origin of mankind itself. I mean, there's so much, we'd have to create another series to cover it all. And even if 99.9% of what he's saying is untrue, that 0.1% is, then it could be enough to completely change the world forever.
It's true.
Now, don't get it twisted. What I see is an absolute madman with very strong convictions. And just like Iron Man, he is narcissistic and full of himself as fuck. But who might ridicule this guy? I mean, he might be onto something. And pretty soon, he's gonna go back on Joe Rogan and face Elon Musk and even Neil deGrasse Tyson. And that could be very interesting. And I know it may be easy and fun to ridicule and make fun of this guy, but you need to remember, once upon a time, a guy named Pythagoras and Aristotle claimed that the earth was round and they were laughed out of the room. Look how that turned out.
That's crazy, man.
So, what do you guys think? Is he crazy or just a misunderstood tortured genius? Leave a comment down below. Remember to like, subscribe, and I will see you on the flip side.